right, we are recording and I'm gonna go ahead and pull up some slides. So give me 1 second to get that. Here we are. Awesome. All right, so we are on a live training today, and it is called Quit People Pleasing so that you can put yourself first and stop overeating from exhaustion, because I know that's what you're doing. Hang on, Jan's coming in. Actually, let me make sure I'm recording. Yes, I am. Okay, super cool. All right. So this is really how we're going to give you a blueprint to learn how to change your relationship with yourself so that you can identify your invisible emotional relationship with food, because it really is invisible. So who is this for? So this training is for if you're a really, really nice person who just wants to make other people happy, but you find that you're making other people happy comes at an expense of your own happiness or your own energy. If you have a beautiful and kind heart, but you don't know how to set clear boundaries, which often leads you to saying yes to things that you wish you could have said no to later. Like when someone asks you, hey, I'm coming into town. Can you pick me up from the airport? And you're like, yeah, of course I can. No problem. And they're like, great. My flight's coming in at 12:47 a.m. And you're like, oh, okay. Oh, sure. See you then. Looking forward to it. And then you hang up and you're like, that's what I'm talking about. If you believe that you must always be nice to everyone, even if that leaves you feeling overwhelmed or exhausted, and it's like you're being nice to everyone but you. And if you've always wanted to learn how to stop people pleasing so that you can make the time to take care of yourself, but you've never really done that before, so you don't really know where to start. So that's for you. Stick around. It's not for you if you want to keep calling yourself a people pleaser, because you won't be able to have both. You won't be able to keep calling yourself a people pleaser and stop people pleasing. If you want to change, then you cannot continue to label yourself as the very same person that you say you don't want to be. So if you're like absolutely unwilling to hand in your people pleaser badge, then you probably don't want to waste your energy here, because you'll be fighting yourself, and that'll be like, why am I doing that? Right. And you also, it's not for you if you don't have a belief that you can change. Like if you have a belief that you cannot change your mind at all, that this is just how it is, that's called having a fixed mindset, and we would not be a good match for you. So working with me in that case would be super frustrating, because then you'll just be telling me why you can't change, and I'll be like, yes, you can change. And you'll be like, no, I can't change. And that's like, it would be a hard thing to move through. Right. So I'm a mindset coach. So it's really important that you decide that you want to have a growth mindset before we dive in. So that is going to be really important. All right, so we're just going to be here for about 45 minutes. I'm going to keep this one a little short and sweet. First thing is how to stop people pleasing by changing your mindset, how to put yourself first and not fear people abandoning you, because that's a thing. It's a false thing, but it is the thing. How to get good at saying no so that you can say yes to yourself, how not to waste time and energy worrying about everybody else, because you're going to get more of what you're thinking about. So if you're just constantly worrying, then you're going to constantly be worrying. So there's just it's like, it's a real time sucker. Honestly, it's a waste of time. How to still be nice all the time and not drain yourself emotionally, and then to be able to transform exponentially, which is a glimpse of what's possible. All right, so we'll start with number one. And I like to dive right into these trainings because I do want to be able to share with those of you who have never worked with me before, who are not working with me now. I want to share with you some opportunities that we have and like what working with a mindset coach looks like, especially one that only works with women who are struggling with emotional eating. And I'll also say that majority of the women that we work with are somewhere between 50 and 75, I would say. So we definitely have a more mature audience. And yet at the same time, some of the behaviors that we have, like having to clean off your entire plate, or, having to have, something sweet, like we're eating Cracker Jacks or whatever. Do they even make Cracker Jacks anymore? I don't even know. But like something like that might be even more of a childish mindset. And yet, we do have a lot of women who work with us who are in their latter decades, just is. So what I want to do first, though, is I want to, before I start talking at all about like what I do and how I do it and opportunities to work with me, I actually want to give you value. That is important to me, to know that you're not sitting on here like an infomercial with me telling you about how great I am and how great the program is and how great everything was for me without actually diving into the content first. To me, it's important that you get what you came for, right? So we're going to actually train you first, and then I'll be talking about some opportunities. All right, cool. So number one, changing your mindset. And for those of you who are working with me, you do know that you have to change your mindset, because a closed mind cannot come up with any new ideas. Thank you, Kathy, for letting me know that they still make Cracker Jacks. I used to love those things, especially when you got the tattoo sticker. I could just like lick your hand and plop it right on there. That was literally the best. Anyways, so a closed mind cannot get any new ideas. So you'll always get what you focus on. So when you focus on you being a people pleaser and that feels like your problem, right? Like anytime that we are operating from a mindset where we are like, this is how it is, this is what I have, this is what the doctor told me, this is just how I've been my whole life, this is how my parents were. Like anytime we're like honing in on what we really feel is the problem, but yet that problem doesn't come with a solution, like then we have to know that we're actually like focusing more on problems, which means that we're going to get more problems. Like if you tell yourself that you're a people pleaser, you are going to get a lot of opportunities to find different people that require your assistance, to find the people in the world who just like can't seem to function on their own and need your help. And you're just the only one that understands. You're the only one that can do it. But it drains you sometimes, right? We can get sucked in by emotional vampires. And then that becomes a real discouraging thing for us, because if we're getting our good feelings about ourselves from helping people, but then there's a person outside of us that's just like, we're giving and giving and giving and giving, it's like never enough. And then suddenly we're like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I give enough? And it's because that's not the problem. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So when you focus on problems, you'll get more problems. When you focus on solutions, you'll get more solutions. So step one of this really is to write this down specifically. And I'm assuming you're all here because you all feel like you're a people pleaser, right? So write this down. If I didn't have to think of myself as a people pleaser, what could I think instead? And let's share in the chat a few little things, like just like, if I didn't have to think this, what can I think instead? And see if you can share in the chat, because Brene Brown, she talks about what stands in the way becomes the way. And again, if you're the gatekeeper of that people pleaser name tag, it's time to turn in your badge, because you can't have both, you won't be able to stop this if you're also labeling yourself as a people pleaser. So Stacy says, I am strong and I have value. Yes. Yes, Stacy, you are strong and you have value, and your value lies within what you want to do. That's also not going to be a sacrifice of your own energy. Yes, that is wonderful, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I could pursue my interest yes, Lori, if I wasn't a people pleaser, if I didn't have to think of myself as a people pleaser, I could pursue my own interests instead of just being like, whatever you want. Yeah, I don't really care. It's okay. It doesn't matter to me. Like if you want to do that, sure, of course, no problem. Right? That's what I'm talking about. Awesome. If anybody else has anything to share, those two were absolutely amazing. Okay, we're letting Arlene in. Hello, Arlene. All right, so we got a couple of really good suggestions here, right? And that's all you have to do. If you want to change your mind about something, just write it in this sentence format. I didn't have to think this. What else could I think? And the only reason why this sentence works so beautifully is because if you are saying, I'm a people pleaser, this is what I am, you won't be able to get any new information. But if you're like, well, hang on a minute, if I didn't have to think that, so we take that and put a pin in it, what else could I think? And look at the beautiful things that we came up with. That's awesome. All right. So number two, put yourself first for a change. So most people pleasing stems from needing, and if you're working with me in Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System, the elite coaching program that we work with our members for a year in, you'll hear this terminology when I use the word needing. So the word need is like a child's word. So you need approval. It's a child's need for approval and validation from others. So this might leave you feeling quite empty, right? So most people that are people pleasing have a need for validation and approval. And when you're constantly looking for that validation and approval outside of yourself, and then perhaps you don't get it or you can't get enough of it, it leaves you feeling empty because you might feel like you let someone down. You know, if somebody's still in a bad mood, even though you brought them home flowers, or even though you picked up their dry cleaning, or even, and they're still like, and you're like, but I'm being so nice. I did everything for you. I cooked dinner. Like, look what I drew a bath. I put on the shower. I did it just the way you liked it. And then you're still not getting that person's like, they're not perhaps still in a good mood. And you're like, but I did everything good. Then it leaves you feeling empty. And when you feel empty there, emotional eating can serve as a really great way to help fill you up of that void. And you're seeking comfort when your self-worth feels threatened. The problem with this is, well, A, it's not sustainable because you can't fill yourself up enough because it just can't happen that way. And number two, in order to get attention from yourself, you could develop a habit of eating a bunch of crap so that then you can emotionally bring negative attention to yourself. So this becomes like a flip-flop. You know, it's like, okay, I need validation from other people. I need approval from other people. Then I do what I think is going to be the best thing. It still doesn't work out great. And then suddenly I'm like, well, I feel empty. So now I have to fill myself up. But then because filling yourself up with all that crap food makes you feel awful about yourself, now you're bringing in all sorts of negative attention, which again, if you're working with me in our 1-year program, you might learn that that is a subconscious intention. It's a craving for a feeling that we might actually have to mature. So hopefully that all makes sense. And that's why you will have to be able to put yourself first, because if you're not putting yourself first and you're constantly looking outside of yourself for validation and for, reasons to feel good about yourself, you're always going to end up feeling empty. And then you're going to want to use food, and then you're going to grab negative attention for yourself. I mean, it's nice and all that you're sweet to everybody else. Those are not the same sweet voices that are talking inside of your head, and you know it. So if your voices from inside your head were on a loudspeaker on the top of your car, you wouldn't want to be driving through your neighborhood with that bellowing out to everybody. And you know that, right? And so that's where it becomes a mismatch. And that's where people pleasing can actually, is actually a betrayal of your own integrity. We're all nice people. Everybody's nice. But if you're doing it to utilize your ability to be able to get to a negative feeling about yourself, then you're doing maybe the right thing for the wrong reasons. And that's just not going to work. All right. So tip number 2 is to be able to see the bigger picture. Really look at it from like a higher operating system. Take a 30,000-foot view of yourself and recognize that the self-sabotaging behavior that comes along with being nice all the time. Becoming aware that you are craving attention. You're not craving food. Okay. All right. And always let me know in the chat if there's anything that, you wanted to, ask questions about. We do have you guys here on this live call, so that's super cool. So the trick is really getting to know yourself, but not the you that you know so well. Not the you that talks about, I'm a people pleaser and I'm overwhelmed and, I'm so hard on myself. I'm my own worst enemy. Like, not that one. How did you get there to begin with? Like, there was a start to this. You were not born this way. So many of us pride ourselves in being a good friend, a devoted partner, a dedicated daughter, a caring mother, a reliable worker. But at the end of the day, if the person who matters most, hint, that's you, spends her evening exhausted with a big bag of chips in her lap, mindlessly scrolling because she gave every ounce of her energy to other people, then you, my friend, have a problem that you're going to want to fix fast. And I know that those of you who are working with me in our year-long elite program, our coaching program, are really working on it. Like, you guys are making a difference in your own mindset. You're shifting, you're changing your paradigms. If you're working with us in Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System, put just a C or put CTFT in the chat just so that we can say hi to you ladies. That would be nice. All right. Okay, so number 3 is how to get good at saying no. How do I get good at this? So if you're putting yourself on the back burner of your own life, you must be saying no to yourself a lot. So this is not going to be good long-term for strategy because it's not sustainable. It's just not. And you know it's not, because that's when you kind of are craving all of that, like either crappy food, staying up way, way, way too late, putting yourself into a position where you don't have time for yourself at all because you're so busy. Also worrying unnecessarily about other people, like waiting for the other shoe to drop because it just can't get this good, You're like, I've got to have something to worry about, right? And so these are people-pleasing behaviors. And it's not sustainable because it's obviously creating negative effects for yourself. And if it was working, then you wouldn't be here because you'd just be totally okay with it. But you're here because you have something you want to change and you're searching for something. But you have to be able to actually make those changes for yourself, but you won't know how to do it unless you can see that bigger picture. So you cannot give what you don't have. So if you're giving others all of your positive energy, you have nothing left for yourself, you're going to end up taking it out on yourself in the long run. And that's the self-sabotaging behavior, right? That's when we're like, I'll stay up too late. I won't go food shopping for myself because I don't have, the energy to do that, or I'm not motivated, or I don't cook well. But then your neighbor down the street has, I don't know, a surgery, and you're like at the supermarket for her. You're the one that's creating the meal list, sending it out to everybody. You know what I mean? Like somehow or another, you're obviously skilled at those types of things because you can do them for others. But then when it comes to you, you're like, I'm too lazy. It's just me. I'm not that motivated. Or we have the excuses of like, so-and-so eats differently than me. Like my husband doesn't like what I eat. He doesn't want salads every night. He wants to go eat, blah, 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 whatever. And then we tend to like put ourselves like we're not important and the other person is. People pleasing gives you a really good reason to remind yourself, or to convince yourself rather, that somebody else is right and that you're wrong. That's what people pleasing does. It's just like, I don't really matter. It's not that important. My husband doesn't like, vegetables. So therefore we just don't eat vegetables. That's not okay. Okay. So tip number 3 is to ask yourself this simple question. If I'm saying no to something, what am I saying yes to? If I'm saying yes to something, what am I saying no to? So I don't know if anybody has any examples of this that they would want to share. Question, hang on. Question, would you say people pleasers are more sensitive? So it's a really interesting question, Nancy. Thank you for asking it. Yes, I would say that there is a empathetic, like really empathetic version of ourselves here. Most people have it. There are certain energy types that have it more. And so we're highly sensitive people. This type of version here has this like ability to be able to like feel others' pain. The thing is though, is a lot of that habit, a lot of that behavior stems from childhood trauma too. Because we got so used to being so sensitive and so kind and so loving. And I'll talk about it in a few minutes and you'll be able to see why this is so important to this equation, because it's sensitive, and yet part of that stems from a somewhat of an immature thinking, and I'll show you exactly what that is in a few minutes. But that's a great question, and yes. So when you're saying no to something, what am I saying yes to? So I remember even when I decided to take my first self-discovery class, this was kind of a way that I was able to interpret it in a way, like just to think like, okay, well, if I don't take this class, if I don't do this now, if I don't like put in the effort, if I don't create something new for myself, what am I saying yes to? I'm saying yes to staying stuck. And I recognize that like within maybe the first couple of times that I went to a self-discovery class, because I kept thinking to myself, I kept saying to myself, like, how could this be? Like, have I just been lying to myself for all these years? Like, I was like 40 something years old already. I was like, how did I get through life in this way so far? Like, how did I not know these things about myself? And I just started to remind myself that, like, I didn't know everything about myself because I only knew the old parts. I only knew the places I got stuck in. I didn't know what could be on the other side of that. And so if I had said no, if I had like put down the hammer there and said, absolutely not, this is all woo woo, this is BS. Like, I know myself so well. Like, I like being nice. I'm just going to do what I keep doing. But then on the flip side of that, if it was hurting me and I just keep doing it, then I'm the one thing standing in my own way. And so if I'm saying no to discovering like why this problem started to begin with, then I am saying yes to staying stuck. And the flip side of that too is just like, you can think about this from any scenario. If I say yes to going onto that committee at the school, church, temple, whatever, what am I going to be saying no to? Am I going to be saying no to being able to walk my dog at the times that I want to? Am I going to be saying no to putting my kids or my grandkids to bed? Am I going to be saying no to spending a weekends with my husband? Am I going to be saying no to taking a vacation because now I don't have whatever time to do, all the planning? Like, just think about it from a lot of different perspectives. And every time that you get stuck with some type of like thought, should I do this? Should I do that? Ask yourself this question and do it both ways. If I say no, what am I saying yes to? If I say yes, what am I saying no to? And this is actually one of the trainings in Crush That Food Thing, which we have Janice here and Arlene here and Harriet, Nancy, Sasha, Kathy, Lori. Yay, we got all of our friends here. I know Stacy's with us as well. Awesome. Thank you, ladies, for sharing. Okay. So, emotional energy. So, think about emotional energy as a bank account. If you had to take $1 away from yourself, and you can put this in the chat if you think that there's something that you can come up with number wise. If you had to take $1 away from yourself every time you said yes to something that you really wanted to say no to, would you be $1 million in debt right now? And if so, then you're wasting your emotional, mental, and spiritual energy. So it's not surprising that you're feeling exhausted all the time, which makes you want to eat. And so I think, when we think about that, like, I cannot tell you how many times, like, I craved like attention. Like, I was craving it. I wanted people to be able to say like, oh, Lisa's the one you can count on. Lisa's the one that comes up with such good ideas. Lisa's the like, I wanted that pat on the back. I wanted that pride, And so I would continuously volunteer for, especially like the room mom job. Like when my kids were little, like I had to be the room mom. And not only had I be the room mom, I had to be the head room mom. I didn't want anybody else getting their little, paws on my credit, like I really wanted to be the delegator of you do this, and this is how it's going to be. And this is my way, which I liked, but I liked more than anything, the attention that I got from it. I liked it being like, well, Lisa's the head room mom. You can talk to her. I liked that at that time much, much more than I liked my sanity, and I liked my time. And I tell you, it was a lot. It was definitely a thankless job. One which I think that I would have done really well with had I really known how to set boundaries for myself and how to delegate and how to do it as a team. Like in my Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system, where I work with my members now, we have teams, we have volunteers, everybody's idea matters, everybody's thought matters. Like, it is not just me at the top here leading the whole group. It is a lot of a community effort. And as you can see, even some of the ladies are here with us today, but it really is a community effort. It's like we are all in this together. And that's the difference between being a leader and being starved for craving attention and having that people pleaser role. Like it might look the same from the outside eye, but it's not the same inside. Like I am not exhausted from anything that I do because I'm not here people pleasing anymore. It's very different. Yeah. All right. So quit people pleasing. Tip number 4 is to take a pause before you say yes or no to anything. You get good at what you practice. And if you practice getting good at taking a day or so to think about what you're about to commit to, and also stop yourself before you launch into volunteering for something that nobody asked you to do. Seriously, like that is a huge, huge thing. When you start hearing people talking in a group setting and suddenly they're like, I don't know, they need somebody to be in charge of going to Costco and picking up like all of the things for the whatever. And you're already sitting in your seat. Nobody's asked you. There's not even a volunteer sign-up sheet yet, but you're already starting to think about like, how can I be in this position? How can I do this? And you're like, I'll do it. It's no big deal. I don't even need any help. I'll be great. And then on the day of, when you're schlepping out of your car and it's hot or cold or whatever, and now you're getting like resentful a little bit, you're like, what did I do this for? But the thing is, a lot of times when you're a people pleaser, your like inside voice is kind of like looking up to the surface for opportunities to put yourself in that people pleasing position. It's not okay. It's never going to be okay. And we have to be able to understand the root cause of why it is that was ever started to begin with. I just want to make sure, can everybody hear me still? Kathy, can you give me a thumbs up? Because I see you in the middle there. Can you hear me still? Yes. Okay, cool. I just heard some beeping on my computer and I like turned my volume off, but I want to make sure you guys could still hear me.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it beeped for 1 minute, but then I could hear everything you said.
Yeah. So being able to take a pause, this will help you develop a new sense of self. And that's a really cool thing. All right. So the next one is how to be nice all of the time, especially to you. This is really kind of cool. And this is what I was talking about before with that thing that Nancy was asking about being sensitive and such. Let me just see. Okay, cool. Aw, Harriet says, I used to volunteer all the time. Thanks to Crush That Food thing, I no longer do that. Yes. Awesome. Kathy says, I have always been one you can count on to be the volunteer. Yeah. Well, again, though, and you'll now recognize within yourself that volunteering is amazing. It's great. It's just that you would want it to not also be the very same thing that leaves you putting yourself on the back burner. If you're not in the position where you're 100% in tune, aligned, like you are actually like steady on your own 2 feet, then it's not time to volunteer. Not right now, anyways. Not if you're not already the driving force in your own life, and not if you're loving the volunteering part because of what it gives you, like the accolades, which is really, I didn't realize it myself. I thought I do like helping people, just not at my own expense. Now I know that. Now I know better. You can't do better unless you know better. So, okay. So chronic long-term people pleasing. Look at this word, chronic. This is chronic. Like this can be a chronic behavior. So chronic long-term people pleasers often go about their people-pleasing behavior without a clue that they are a huge part of the problem. I was that person. I did not know. The habit of being nice all the time is left over from childhood, where magical thinking was a thing. This means that you believe that your niceness should protect you from anything bad happening. Believing this sets you up for a lifetime of self-blame. When bad things do happen, which they will, you will end up blaming yourself for not being nice enough or good enough to fix the problem. So this is actually from a book that is called The Disease to Please. Interestingly enough, I'm a recovered people pleaser. Like I'm recovered. I now know how to set firm boundaries. I put myself first. I never say yes to anything that I am not 100% committed to. And if I do say yes to something, it's not going to be too much on my plate. If it's on your plate, it's because you've ordered it. So if you say yes to doing this, and this, and this, and oh, why don't you throw on this? And then you're overwhelmed. Well, you ordered a big plate of overwhelm for yourself. So maybe yes to this and no to the 9 other things that the volunteer community is going to ask you to do, because that's going to be a thing, right? When you're struggling in this space, and the book is called Disease to Please, and interestingly enough, I got this from my son's Kindle, because we shared a Kindle, and I was like, like, this is interesting. I said, why did you get this? And he says, because I think I'm a people pleaser, Mom. And interestingly enough, both of my sons, people pleasers. Wonder if I had anything to do with that. Right? It gets passed down, right? We model what we see. So both of my boys have actually had to break up with people pleasing on their own. I had already actually done that because I've been doing self-discovery work for close to 10 years now. And now they're both, adults, but they were able to see like a different version of me. And that created inspiration for them to both, without me saying anything, to both look into their own behaviors. So we never change anybody else with our opinion, always just with what we are doing, right? So it's like I got this book out of my son's Kindle because he was like, I think I have a problem, Mom. I'm saying yes to everything and doing all kinds of stuff. And he had to realize it in himself. So when you're struggling with people pleasing, nobody can tell you this. Nobody can tell you, oh, you're too nice. You shouldn't do that. Why are you shouldn't say yes. Nobody can tell you it. It has to come from you. But if you are stuck in that magical thinking where, listen, when you're really little, you give mom a few daisies, it's wonderful. When you're really little and mom and dad are fighting and you come up with daisies, your plan didn't work. Or you're like, but look, don't get divorced. I brushed my teeth really good. Like, that's magical thinking. And it happens, right? And we can see how it can happen because children a lot of times take ownerships of the things that they see going on outside of them. So if there was something that was strugglesome in your childhood, and then you might have blamed yourself, you might have thought, well, if I just could have been good enough, if I just could have been better, if I just could have been nicer, right? And then we start to blame ourselves. And then that can translate into adulthood, but it's not really coming from your adult mindset. It's still coming from that child's mind. So pretty cool. Does anybody think that that's kind of cool? I thought that was a really cool thing to learn. Which is awesome. So, quit people pleasing. Tip number 5, it simply isn't humanly possible to live up to the burden of being nice all the time, nor is it sustainable. You must lower your expectations of yourself so that you can see how being nice to others isn't always very nice to yourself. And this is how we will transform exponentially. Honestly, happiness is a choice you make and a skill you develop. The mind is just as malleable as the body. We spend so much of our time and effort trying to change the external world, other people, and our own bodies, all while accepting ourselves the way that we were pre-programmed in our youths. We accept that voice that talks to us in our head as a source of all truth, but all of it's malleable. Every day is new, and memory and identity are burdens from the past that prevent us from living freely in the future or in the present. So people pleasing stems from your childhood. It really does. It's like teacher's pet. I was the good girl. I always got good grades. It's like we want to be the good one. Like, we are used to that role. And because we're highly sensitive people, as Nancy was saying, like, we care. We really care, and it's like, so it kind of just gets transformed into this like magical place, but it doesn't work in real adult like relationships, right? Because you'll end up like matching your energy of people pleasing with other people who have also not emotionally matured. So it's like a person who hasn't emotionally matured, that's perhaps like really, really needy of being able to get attention from outside themselves, might match with you, who's also really, really needy of wanting and needing to get attention from outside of yourself. And then the two match. And it's like one plays the dependent part and one plays the codependent part. And this is part of like codependency, which is a totally different topic. This quote, by the way, is from a book. I got it from a book called Tribe of Mentors. different authors in there. So I don't know who said this quote, but it is not like I didn't write that. So this is tip number 6 is beware of the root cause of the problem so that you can live freely today. No more labels. So no more calling yourself a people pleaser. No more fear of abandonment. That is a childlike mindset. That is just not true. People will love you right where you're at. And if they're not loving your no, then they have maturing to do on their own. And you can stand firm with love and kindness. Don't have to be mean about it. We can also get caught in this all or nothing mindset where we think like, well, the opposite of nice is mean. And if I'm not nice, then I'm going to be mean. That's not true at all. You can have firm love and kindness. That's what setting boundaries is all about. No more saying yes to everything without taking your pause. No more worrying about what others will be mad, that others will be mad at you. Like if somebody is mad at you because you said no, because it doesn't work for you right then that person, that's on them. So their anger or they're mad or whatever, that is on them. That is nothing, and I mean nothing to do with you. So lowering your expectations of yourself also, like not to think like, I've just got to do everything, like lower your expectations, right? Like I said, if you're like, I volunteer for one thing and then suddenly you've got 30 things on your plate and then you say, well, people are taking advantage of me. No, they're not. No, they're not. You're just people pleasing, right? So we wouldn't want to blame anybody else for our wrongdoings, and that's on us. When you're feeling no more feeling drained, emotionally drained, this is what freedom feels like. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about like how I know all this, where this started from, what my life used to look like, and how I've been able to shift out of this, because all of this people pleasing thing is like one layer of the emotional eating layer cake, right? It's just like one part. There's so many different other things that can add to this whole vicious cycle. So this was my life in a nutshell, basically from 1985 to 2015. When I was a teenager, it was like teen magazine, slim fast, husky jeans. There was a boyfriend that told me I could look better if I went on a diet. I started calling myself names in my head, fat, ugly, ogre. I just was caught in that thought where I was insecure with myself. I looked outside of myself. I saw others. I would look at that teen magazine and I was so envious of those girls, blonde hair, blue eyes, whatever. And I just thought, my gosh, like I'm so ordinary. Like, and so with those labels like attached to me, I couldn't be anything else. And so I thrived on the things that I thought were good, which was teacher's pet. Like I loved helping that teacher out. It was like the best thing in the world because I was a good girl. I liked that role. And so all of this stuff was very fear-based, and it just kind of started on a negative downhill of like negative self-talk, and then what happened from there was it led me into perfectionism, because then when I became a young adult, I was like, I'm going to do everything better. You can kind of see that childhood and you can kind of see that insecure girl and you're like, I'm not going to be her anymore. And so I started working out. I became a personal fitness trainer. I kind of was now, instead of like climbing the mountain so that I could see the world in a different way, I was sort of climbing the mountain so that the world could see me. I was going to be better than that ugly past version of myself, that husky girl. I didn't want to be her anymore. So I tried to climb like over her, and I tried to climb up to the top. I thought I would be like this great trainer and I was going to make money and I was going to have a husband and I was going to have a house and I was going to have kids. And I had my whole life like literally mapped out to the point where it was like, check, check, check. I was just checking off societal norms. And I got really insecure with myself, but it didn't show outside, at least to my knowledge, which I know this isn't true, but to my knowledge, I thought that I had it all figured out. I think other people could feel that my energy wasn't matching and that I wasn't really being authentic. And I know other people could feel that. So in order to like stay in my like perfect mold of what I thought I had to be, I went on every diet known to mankind, including the cookie diet, where I lost 8 pounds, but then I started binging on the cookies. I spent thousands. And if you go into the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group, you'll see a training that shows that I spent $69,000 trying to lose weight. And anybody who wants to share in the chat can as well. I just product after product after product after diet after diet. It was just insanity. And in between, I still binged daily. Like I did, because I would at least have, I mean, maybe there was days that I could make it through a day, but it was literally like, yeah, painful, painful when I could make it through a day. Or there was days where I would just have like a little bit and be like, okay, now I can like breathe again. But then it would like go right back to like full swing binge. And I found myself struggling. I was really, everything had to be perfect. I was angry at my husband. I was yelling at my kids. Like I had to be perfect. So it was like, if somebody didn't like come along with my plan, then I could get, you know what, I could get angry. I really could. And I found myself really then feeling bad about that, because I was like, that's not who I wanted to be. I was comparing myself to others. I was judging myself. I was blaming. I was manipulating. Like I would make situations like turn in a direction where suddenly my husband had like accidentally said the wrong thing or something, or I made myself like a victim in some way. Like I managed to do that in different ways of just speaking and communicating, or being like passive aggressive, or saying no to something that I really wanted to say yes to, or saying yes to something that I really wanted to say no to. It went with food too, where I'd be like, oh, I don't care what we eat, you, whatever. And then he'd be like, let's get Mexican. I'd be like, I'm trying to lose weight. Like, how am I, that's not fair. You know what I mean? Like I was contradicting myself like left and right. And it left me feeling really out of control and very defeated, honestly. And so the reason why we work together in Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And also we have another short course program called the Mindset Makeover. So if anybody here does want to know anything about these programs or anything, just put the word me in the chat. I know that there are some people here who are not working with us yet. So if anybody wants to know anything about some of these programs, whether it be the Mindset Makeover or Crush That Food Thing, please go ahead and drop the word me in the chat and I'll reach out. So what we're going to do here from 2016 on, this was healing. And you can't have both. You cannot expect yourself to be healed and expect yourself to not go through a healing process. Like there has to be some time. You cannot rip a Band-Aid off over and over and over again. And I'll share this on other trainings when I tell people to get off the scale. Like don't weigh yourself every day. And people go, but if I don't, I'm so afraid that I'll gain weight. It's like, okay, well, you're going to have to take that chance of trusting yourself for this period of time while you're healing from the craving that you have to feel like whatever you're feeling after you step on that scale, whether it be in your mind, good or bad, right? So you'll have to like take the pause on that. So when you are entering into a healing space, you're going to stop wasting time and energy on surface level solutions like diets, like going on the scale, because emotional eating comes from a root cause. And if you don't fix the root cause, you will continue to throw time and emotional energy at the problem, which isn't good. What self-discovery also gives you is it gives you permission. It gives you permission to give yourself like the opportunity to change, to heal, to grow, to think differently about food and about your emotional eating that you ever had before. Most people think that food is the problem. When we start working together in self-discovery, you will never think that food is the problem. You will always look at yourself as being the problem. But remember, all problems have solutions. So you will also be the solution. So you are the problem and you are the solution, not a bunch of outside stuff that is not solution-based. So you'll also be able to stop focusing on food so that you can begin to turn your attention inward and take back what is rightfully yours, which is your health and your happiness. It's your birthright. You were not put on this planet to please everybody else. That's just not what it's about. You have to be able to have what you want to give. And if you don't have like your own self-worth, if you don't have your own emotional energy and you don't have your own spiritual and physical connection, then you will not be able to give what you don't have. So that is why you'd want to be able to embrace your own inner peace. So when you work on healing, you'll be able to stop wasting money on fad diets and products that promise weight loss or a magical solution to fix things that just don't exist, right? We talked a little bit before about magical thinking. So we want to be able to look at that from a wider lens. And then feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself and your looks and your size. You're an awesome human being. You deserve to live an extraordinary life. When I heard those words, I deserve to live an extraordinary life, I was like, about that. I kind of was just like, I don't know, I just sort of want to be average, I think, like I don't want to be like extraordinary or anything. And that's it, that goes into like judgment, where we like look at other people and we think that the person on Facebook who's flash dancing around the world lives an extraordinary life. And that's just not true. You deserve to live an extraordinary life. And I want you to feel valuable and like your life matters. And that's why I love like what Stacy put in the chat earlier when I asked that question. And she said, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like something about, being valuable. Like that. Yeah. That like she's important, I am strong and I have value. Yeah. That's super cool. So I see we just had another new gal just join in. Just so you know, you'll get a recording of this because we did most of the training already. And now we're actually just talking about other opportunities on how to get out of your own way and stop emotional eating in its tracks. So I do know what this is like. I was painfully stuck for 30 years, but I radically changed everything in my mind. And then that changed everything. So your mind is a mirror. What you see on the inside, you will attract on the outside. Like I said, if you believe that your worth is dependent on other people needing you, and that the only thing that's valuable about you is how nice you can be and how good you can be to others, that is beautiful. And it will also attract every person who is in need of a million things and a million hours of your time, because you won't be able to then say no because you're attracting that to you. And so I want to show you how what we do has worked for me, my team, and my students. So one of the things, let's see, what you need is this. Okay. Hang on. Let me just, there we go. Okay. So when we work with you in either Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system or in the mindset makeover, it's a blueprint. It's like just a step-by-step process. And it gives you the exact mindset to focus on daily and strategically so that you don't constantly feel like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop and like something bad is about to happen, because usually when people are coming in here, they feel like their life is like this one big ball of stress. And so we've mapped out an exact system for you, specifically planned to help you navigate daily life without reaching for cookies every time you feel a little bit overwhelmed. I know we have some of our members here today that have said that they felt a certain same feeling that they usually feel. And then they kind of opened the refrigerator and was like, you know what? No, I don't want this right now. And they close the refrigerator. Or people, we've had one lady who works with us who had a bad day. She had a stressful day, whatever. And she found herself in the Wendy's drive-through. She ordered like an ice cream frosty or a milkshake or something. And then when she got up to the second window, she like paused and was like, no, I'm not going to do this. And she gave it to the person behind her, because waking yourself up and being able to like see that 30,000 foot view that we talked about earlier, that's a really important part of this. So I'll help you gain access to your strengths, motivation, determination, courage, confidence, and your purpose of why you're here on this planet to begin with. You were not put on this planet to people please. You just weren't. It's yes, when Nancy asked earlier, is this like for sensitive people? Yeah. Yes, we are sensitive and we're beautiful people. I mean, everybody's a beautiful human being. There are a lot of people who are pained, and a lot of people who struggle with trauma, and a lot of people who have taken their childhood belief systems into their present self. And that's the part that we are not valuing ourselves as we are today. And that's why that doesn't work, because it might have worked when we were little. And it might have worked when we were in dangerous situations or when we were in survival mode, that people pleasing, that being nice to people. Like sometimes, I mean, we have women who have come from abusive backgrounds and like, they better have been nice, and that's okay. Right. But that's a learned behavior. That doesn't mean that that's what you were born for. Doesn't mean that you can't be something else. It just means that you had to be that then. And now you're allowed to be something else. And that's what self-discovery allows you to do. It allows you to embrace a new mindset, a new way of thinking, so that you'll no longer be focused on food, because food is just like a cover-up story. And instead, you'll be focused on your life. Like, we don't ever want to focus on what we're losing, like weight loss. We only want to focus on like life gain, right? So the awesome news is that if any of this feels like you, I want you to tell yourself right now, tell yourself this: overeating and weight gain are not my problem, period. They are symptoms, period. So it's possible that you're stuck in an old limiting operating system, your mind, and that you just didn't have upgrading in your thoughts in a little bit while. So now we're going to learn how to have a new way of thinking. And let's see, these are just some extra tips that I gave you along the way. So we went over the first 6 parts of how to stop people pleasing, and I gave you 6 tips, shared with you a little bit of my story. Now we're talking a little bit about Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system and the mindset makeover. And these are some things that are just like little tips that you can take along with you, right? Because I want to just give you as much value as I can in this short class. So focus. This is something to remember. We talked about this earlier. You will get what you focus on. If you focus on your flaws, and people pleasing is considered to be a shortcoming, right? So I would want you to look at that. If you were evaluating someone else, if someone said, you know what do you think of me? Well, you're too darn nice and you say yes all the time. It's just, I see you don't put yourself first. You know what I mean? Like, could you imagine yourself saying that and observing and evaluating someone else and looking at it as not a great thing, right? So if you're people pleasing, evaluate yourself, really see like, well, what do I do? And when you're doing that, don't say it as it's like, that's it. This is who I am. Oh, well, like, no, you'll get what you focus on. So if you focus on your flaws, then you will not have the courage to change. If you focus on your character, you will develop the courage to change your flaws. And again, your character is something you were born with. That is your integrity. That's your intuition. That's your character, your strengths. But if you're using being nice because you were, you got praised as a little kid, and now you're using it to hurt yourself, then that is not contributing to your strengths. Pay close attention to your thoughts during idle time, daydreaming, ruminating, mindlessly scrolling social media, all a waste of time. So this one's important for people pleasing because, again, you might start to think like, oh, I have to volunteer for 1,000 things. And you might like put yourself into a position where you can start envisioning like, what will this be like? And how can I help everybody? And like, everybody will be so proud of me. And like, you can really start to boost yourself up there in a mindset that probably will not be adding value to your day. Pay attention to your intentions. Only give yourself one thing to focus on accomplishing each day. Make sure you create a clear path so that you can get to easily. So again, going into like intentions, right? Like if you want to help, great. But make certain that you're not putting 10,000 things on your plate, because again, if it's on your plate, it's because you've ordered it. So if you say yes to one thing and that turns into 13 things, and now suddenly you're irritated and you're like, why did I do this? And so-and-so is taking advantage of me and all that stuff. Just make sure that you know that saying yes to all of those things that you really wanted to say no to, that got you to a subconscious intention. Like you planned that subconsciously, but you still planned it because you put it on your plate. All right. And hang out with people who are interesting in personal growth, like exploring new things and challenge themselves to become a better human being. You want to be aware of those emotional vampires, right? You want to be aware when somebody's asking you and over asking you and over asking you and over asking you, and you want to be aware of your part. When your next door neighbor comes for the 4th time that week and drops her kids off in the front of your house because she's like, my babysitter canceled. I know you're always home. Could you just watch them for an hour? And then that turns into 4 hours. And then you're like, no big deal. But you end up making cookies with them and you end up sitting on the couch and you were going to get so many things done, but you couldn't because your neighbor brought the kids over again for the millionth time. That is an emotional vampire. And you're going to feel awkward at first saying no, because that person has an expectation of you saying yes. And it's going to feel awkward at the beginning, which is why when you're working on change, it's going to help develop your courage and your strength, right? Because if you do it the opposite way, you're just like, I don't know how to do this, you're going to get more of that because you're focused on, I don't know how to do this, right? This is my daughter, by the way. Isn't she pretty? Okay. Do things that scare you and excite you at the same time. Learn how good it feels to be nerve-sighted about the endless possibilities that life has to offer you. Yes, your life, whether you think you can't, think about this, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right. That's Henry Ford. So that's my guy. We are in Greece here. And all while giving yourself permission to love yourself right where you're at, and that focusing on your feelings will add value to your life so that you can crowd out all of the negative distractions that make you want to sit and numb yourself with food. And remember what we talked about earlier when we said that when you're people pleasing, like you're craving good feelings about yourself from other people. And then because that's not sustainable, you cannot get them. You will be left with an empty feeling. You'll be left with a void. And then you'll have to try and fill that void with food. But that doesn't work either, because then on the flip side of that, now you've got all kinds of health issues. You're unmotivated. You feel out of sorts. You're not in your like right body, because the body, given half the chance, will heal itself. But when you're eating and eating and eating, and they're putting weight on, and you don't feel good, and you're unmotivated, and you can't put your shoes on, and it's like it adds to a slew of problems that you really can't fix unless you start to understand and change the root cause of the problem. So after the training today, you'll know that you are in a judgment-free and safe space. I want you to know that I'm here because I did not know that this journey was available for me. I'm not a course creator where, I just decided one day, I'm going to write a class on emotional eating. This is my life. This is my story. And the only way that you will ever know what your purpose in your life for your story is to actually get through this part and then be able to come out the other side. So that way you can tell this story, but not from your like it's burned into your skin. It still hurts. It doesn't hurt anymore. Now I can talk about it openly and freely. Emotional eating was the biggest shame point in my life. But as Brene Brown talks about, shame cannot live in the darkness. It can't live in it. Hang on. It can't live in the light. It can only live in the darkness. So just bringing it up to the surface is going to be helpful for your figuring out this root cause. So the best part about this all is that when we do work together, you'll have clarity on what to focus on every day, so you don't feel random with your decisions. This is just talking a little bit about Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System. This system is designed to take away your fear from failure, away from your past patterns and habits, away from your failed attempts to lose weight, and give you a new perspective to a simpler, kinder approach to learn how to care for yourself as you would someone you love. It's nice to say, I want to care about myself as someone I love. It's nice to say that. And you can do it sometimes until life gets rocky. And then suddenly you're back to the back of the bus, back to the back burner. Because if you don't understand and recognize with empathy, like Nancy said earlier, we're sensitive people. Well, you have to be able to be sensitive to that past version of yourself who created all these habits to begin with. The one who put herself on the back burner, the one who decided she was a people pleaser, the one who raised her hand for every volunteer position, but then had to stop at McDonald's 5 times a week. She had no time to cook for herself. And, the one that put on 20 pounds while she was on some kind of work project because that was so important to get done right then, right? The one who puts herself in the back burner, we want to understand her and we want to be sensitive to her feelings, but we want to give her other options, because if she stays in that place where she thinks that was the only choice, I had to do it, there's no other way. That's not true. That's just not true. We have to be able to get to the bottom of that. All right. We're just going to do a very quick little brief spotlights here on a couple of our members. Some of you know our beloved Kelly. Wait, hang on. Now I don't know if I can do this because I have my sound off. Let's see if you guys can hear it.
Solutions. They were Band-Aid solutions to certain problems. I would lose the weight and I would gain the weight back plus. And over those years, being from age 10 to 47, I lost 700 plus pounds and gained the same amount, if not probably more, back like each time. And they all led me just to mindless binge eating, like hurting myself with food. That's what I was doing. And I recognize that now. And I hadn't discovered the root cause. I keep going back to that now. I had not discovered that root cause. And that was my invisible emotional relationship with food. And I didn't even know that existed until I came into this space.
Thank you. And that's Kelly. Yeah, she never realized before that everything she did was like not sustainable. Kelly's been with us for close to 3 years now. She actually started to work with us, and she's our strategy coach. And it's so interesting because Kelly's a nurse. So she knew everything. Like she knew how to eat, and she gave nutrition plans for people and all that stuff. And Kelly had a very strong sense of self when she came in. She very much was like, I know this, I know that, this is how I am, blah, blah, blah. Like she was very sarcastic. She's become like a different human being. And during that part of her journey, she's been now almost 3 years. She's lost over 60 pounds, and it'll never come back on her body, right? So her body is now regulating itself. It's just doing it on its own. Like we never did any dieting. We never talked about food. She just recognized she was actually the one that I was talking about before that like had that bad day and then went through the drive-through and was going to get this shake. And then was like, you know what? Not now. Like I can have a shake anytime I want. But right now when I'm pissed off and I'm in a bad mindset, I'm like, well, I'm not going to be okay. And so she realized it. And through making those, we call them micro decisions, she has been able to, without ever thinking about it, like just realizing suddenly her pants were too big, and she was like, oh, okay. So that was pretty cool. And then
this is realization Robin. And the awakening that it wasn't about the food was for me. It was just something that just hit me in my face. And I had to sit back for a minute and think, wait, just a second. I've always thought it was about the food. If I just eat this and this, and I don't eat that and that because it's bad, food has power and it's so bad. So if it's sitting over there and it has control over me, I can't ever eat that because it has this control over me. And it was such a sad way to live and so restricting and so rigid. But I was so accustomed and used to that I thought that's what it was. So my biggest resistance was just that, just the thought that this isn't about, what do you mean it's not about food? It is about food. So I had to go through some things to get to this place where I thought, it's not about the food.
Yeah. And Robin actually really did have to go through a lot of stuff to get here because she didn't want to talk to me when we first started emailing back and forth. She pushed me away for quite a number of months where she was like, I'm working with a psychiatrist, I'm working with a therapist, I'm working with this person, I'm doing that. And she really did not want to work with me. And yet everything that I say comes from my heart, right? So there's no right or wrong. It's just really a matter of like your own decisions every single day that you make for yourself. And Kathy's saying, I make a lot better, maybe just a few a day, but it is building. Yes, Kathy, that is amazing. Kathy works with us in our Crush That Food Thing program. And I think even at the beginning, and I won't necessarily speak for Kathy, but I will say that as a member Spotlight as well, like she also was kind of thinking at the beginning, like, this isn't going to work for me, but it works for everybody. Honestly, self-discovery works for everybody. It's just a matter of taking that wider snapshot of your life, being able to see the 30,000 foot view and being open-minded. A closed mind cannot accept any new ideas. So if your mind's closed and you're like, nope, this is just how I am. This is just how I am, then then it won't work. It will work when you open your mind, right? So this is just some of our things. Countless women, we've watched countless women end decades of struggle and gain confidence in themselves and learn how to take huge steps towards imperfect action. That's one of the main things. I'll just let you guys glance around this. I won't read everyone, but just the main thing about self-discovery and what we do is taking imperfect action, which really could be scary for people who are struggling with people pleasing, because like people pleasing is also like paired off with perfectionism. Like it's this similar thing, right? Because we want to do a good job. We want everybody to be proud of us. We want to do the right thing. And sometimes we can do the right thing, but for the wrong reasons. And then sometimes the wrong reasons end up making us feel like other people are taking advantage of us. Like, remember the scenario that I gave a little bit ago when I said, somebody's coming into town. Hey, I'm coming into town for one day. Could you pick me up from the airport? Of course, no problem. I'm coming in at 12:47 a.m. Okay. No problem. That'd be great. And then the next thing you know, that person's all wound up on coffee from the whole night of being flying. You get them from the airport, and now they're like, hey, let's stop at, I don't know, Wendy, whatever's open all night, Denny's, and you find yourself like in this place where you're doing something that you don't want to do. And that is not okay. And that has to be coming with boundaries. And if you're people pleasing, you might not be skilled in setting boundaries. So, so here's the great thing about this. We can change anytime we want to. And I have my picture of my butterfly here because a butterfly has to go through a change, right? They come from being a caterpillar to a butterfly. But I don't know if you know this about butterflies. If you see a butterfly, they're in their little cocoon thing, and the cocoon falls or whatever, and they're breaking out. They're like getting their wings out of that thing. It looks painful. They have to squeeze out this thing, and once they're out, then their wings are strong enough to fly. If they have help in the sense that somebody else is going to do it for them, somebody else is going to open that cocoon for them, they will never, their little bodies will be so pumped up with fluid, they have to push out that chrysalis, like they have to. And if somebody else does it for them or thinks they can do it for them, then they won't ever be able to fly. And it's the same thing with us. Like, self-discovery is an opportunity for you to push yourself out. And some parts, it's like you're pushing yourself through this next stage of your journey, right? So a lot of the women that I work with are somewhere between 50 and 70. So you might think to yourself, oh, I'm 60 some years old. I don't know myself. What's left to learn? Plenty. If you're working from past behaviors and immature frozen emotions, plenty new to learn. And you'll have to be able to do that work yourself, which is why we give you the opportunity to do it here in self-discovery. Because if we do it for you, like, I don't know, counseling and, sometimes, or even just talking to a friend, sometimes people can be like, well, of course you feel that way. You had this, and this happen. But you know what? You can do better than your previous version of yourself. And so self-discovery helps push you to that next level. And it's like having contractions, like being a little bit of contractions to like birth you into the next version of yourself, which is really cool, So are you ready to learn how to dramatically change your mindset so that you have consistent flow of energy and can align yourself with your purpose in your life, right? I didn't know I was going to be doing this. The only reason why I'm doing this is because I found that purpose in me, because I went through this, right? Your purpose in life is not to eat and feel bad about yourself. And it's also not to only please others. That's not the way to go. All right. So here's just a quick little recap of the old way. Look in the mirror, judge yourself every day, judge every line on your face, every fat cell in your body, and then hone in on every negative thought or experience you've ever had in your entire life. Please others, do for others, don't do for yourself. That's the old way, which results in you feeling scrambled, mixed up, messed up. And it equals very little growth of your daily habits, patterns, and you feel frustrated and you feel overwhelmed, and like your very existence is a bother to others, which is why you're people pleasing, because you're looking to get more of your good feelings from outside of yourself. So this is what we do when we work with you in self-discovery, is we start by accepting where you are today. We meet you right where you're at. You don't have to change a thing. You don't have to know anything about self-discovery. You don't have to know anything. We give you an actual map, a blueprint. And then from there, you can learn to talk to yourself in a kinder way. You can start to minimize talking about gossip, news, politics, refrain from complaining. That's a thing also. Learn how something new every day, changing patterns and habits, mixing things up a bit, like Kathy said before, with little micro decisions that she's making every day. That's awesome. And then allow yourself to have a beginner's mindset, which is somewhat difficult, again, for a people pleaser, because people pleasers and perfectionists are very similar. And when you come in with a beginner's mindset, you will not know everything. A lot of times when you're struggling with perfectionism, you'll also be procrastinating, because you'll be like, well, if I can't do it right, I'm not going to do it at all, kind of thing. And so you have to come in here with a beginner's mindset. That's really, really important. And it's such a beautiful process too. Cleaning up all of your idle time, and finding a tribe, joining like fun people who are energized and who can help light you up from the inside out. Because if you don't know how to do that on your own, you might not even know it's a thing. You might be trying to get your good feelings about yourself from people pleasing, or from thinking, oh, I have to relax, I need a massage, I've got to take a cruise, I've got to, just like outside stuff. But if you're feeling good from the inside, all of that stuff is even more pleasurable. So practice remembering you get good at what you practice. If you practice being impatient with yourself, you'll end up quitting, and you will get good at that. So practice makes progress. This is just another little testimonial. My life has changed since I started Crush That Food Thing. I learned that I don't have to be stuck in the past. I don't have to be sad, hurt, scared, angry person. I learned that I can choose not to fuel those emotions, that I can choose what to think and how to feel, freed myself from the past, and stop thinking about future and all of those what ifs. I'm living in the now. That's awesome. And that's really, we're almost done here. So the difference between someone who shows up authentically and someone who doesn't is that a person who shows up authentically doesn't have to change themselves to fit in. And that's part of the people pleasing thing. It's like, we feel like we have to like put on a million hats. We feel like we have to be one thing to one person, one thing to another person. But as long as we're always pleasing everybody, then that makes everybody else happy. But then that doesn't allow us to show up as our own authentic version of ourselves. And then once you can show up as your own authentic version of yourself, you'll have the confidence in yourself to crush your food thing and have the freedom from food that you desire, which is super cool. And ask yourself this very important question. Is what you're currently doing working for you? Now, I know if you're in Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system, it is working, but we have some people here that are not. And so that's kind of cool question to ask yourself. Is what you're doing working? Is it working all the time? I don't mean like just a little time. I mean all the time. The way you do everything is the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So if you're like we said before, when I shared that example of like your neighbor gets sick and suddenly you're designing the whole food ring for everybody, and you've got it all organized, and people are dropping off food to your house, and then you bring it to her house. And I mean, seems pretty motivating to me, but then to tell yourself that you're too tired or exhausted, that you have no time for yourself and you can't do that for you, or that you don't even know where to start, that's a BS story, because you could see that you do it for everybody else. So here's a couple of myths. I've been struggling for 40 years. It's too late for me to change now. Think about all that time I've wasted. Remember, you will get what you focus on. So if you focus on the fact that you think you're wasting time, what will you get? You will get more and more and more and more opportunities to waste time and to prove that to yourself. The truth, you are always free to choose your next thought anytime you want to. Time is irrelevant when it comes to thinking of a new thought. You could literally think one thought right now, and the next minute think another one. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you want to change. The only thing that will allow you to change is your willingness to change. Nothing is easy for the unwilling. So just imagine this, having the freedom to choose your next thought, to learn how to have the discipline to stop and pause before you respond to life's stressful situations, or to be able to easily make decisions for yourself that always have your best interest at heart. Once you know how to do this, you can do it over and over again. And that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the rest of your life and beyond. So Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system and the Mindset Makeover. Mindset Makeover is just a really small little program, but Crush That Food Thing is a year-long program, and both are very valuable. Both of these systems allow you to be more present to the ones you love, spend more time working on your passions, to be more excited to wake up every day, to feel total fulfillment and less stressed, to leave the past in the past, to make massive amounts of change that will give you total freedom to live your life on your own terms without relying on food for anything other than for keeping you alive and enjoying yourself. So, and when you've learned how to live from your highest self, life works for you without feeling like you're underwater 24/7. You'll learn how to build stamina and strength and confidence so that you can grow your happiness. You'll learn how to make every day a new day and live in your truth. I am the queen of kindness. I love being nice to everybody. Trust me, I really do. And I do this type of work here because I'm connected with my heart. And I love being honest. I love being able to show up as my authentic self. I don't want to spend my energy saying yes and then closing the door and being like, and then gossiping behind someone behind their back and being like, I just wish they would stop freaking asking me to do things for them, right? This happens. That's all part of people pleasing. And so you end up betraying yourself without ever recognizing it. So Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system, it works. It's worked for me. It's worked for all of my clients, and it will work for you as well. So now you have a choice. Choice one is to figure this out on your own. If you feel like you can do that, great. I don't recommend it because I couldn't do it on my own, and I am an expert at what I do now. So if even when I'm struggling with something now, I still work with a coach or a colleague, period. Like, you cannot know what you don't know. So you will not know how to do this on your own. And reading a book is not enough. It's really important to work with a community. Choice two, learn a proven and tested system from someone who's actually mastered how to stop thinking about food all the time, who has put together an incredible opportunity for women across the world, and who has a total passion to see you living your best life, just like the rest of our members, which is really cool.